I didn't always feel like a failure. In fact, there was a time I felt like a king. That's how it began. I still remember those mornings. Waking up at 5:30 a.m. to beat the traffic in Ibadan. I would leave the house early, sometimes before the sun was fully up, my shirt neatly ironed, shoes polished, ID card clipped to my chest like a badge of honor. I worked at a commercial bank. 10 years. Not a manager, not a director, but I was stable. I earned well. My salary came every month, right on time. My kids ate 3 square meals. My mother had her medication. My wife smiled without pretending. I was not rich, but I was proud. Our house wasn't fancy. Just a 3-bedroom apartment in a quiet part of town. But it was full of laughter. On Saturday mornings, my wife would sing as she swept. The children would chase each other around. Mama would be in the backyard, humming old Yoruba songs as she watered her little pepper plants. I had 4 children. Tolu, my first daughter, was my pride. Smart, respectful, always thinking ahead. She was studying law at the University of Lagos. The day we dropped her off at school, I cried. I tried to hide it, but she saw me and smiled. "Daddy, I'll make you proud," she said. The others were still in private school. Junior, my second born, always talked about being an engineer. The twins, Simi and Dara, just wanted to eat sweets and watch cartoons. They made noise, scattered the house, laughed at everything. And I loved it. My wife, Ronk, worked as a primary school teacher. Her salary wasn't much, but she managed it like magic. She could stretch 5,000 Nigerian nairas to feed us for 2 days. She knew which market to buy from, which seller would give her tomatoes with extra onions. We were a team. We didn't have it all, but we had us. We saved where we could. Every Sunday, after church, we would sit and talk about how to plan for the future. Maybe buy land someday. Maybe build a small house. Maybe travel once, just once, to somewhere nice. It was the kind of life where things didn't come easy, but they came. And I remember telling myself one night, as I tucked the twins into bed, "God, thank you. I don't have millions, but I have everything I need." I meant it. But life doesn't always stay where you want it to. There were small signs. The bank started downsizing departments. Meetings became tense. People began whispering in corners. Even the branch manager, who used to joke with me, became cold. But I told myself, "Adiwale, you've been here for 10 years. You've never caused trouble. Your record is clean. You'll be fine." I believed that. I had to. One evening, I came home late and tired. Runk served me warm amala and uidu. Mama was watching her favorite Yoruba movie. The twins had drawn on the walls again. It was messy, noisy, and chaotic. But I smiled. Because it was our chaos. Our life. Our little world that I had worked so hard to build. Looking back now, that night was the last time everything felt whole. The next morning, I sat in the staff bus, reading news headlines on my phone. NNPC to cut down staff. Another bank announces job layoffs. Naira drops again. I sighed and scrolled past. None of it felt like my story. I got to the office, clocked in as usual. We had a team meeting. Halfway through, HR sent me an email. "Please come to the 7th floor conference room by 2 p.m. I didn't think much of it. Maybe it was about training. Or maybe another round of team reorganization. But something in my stomach tightened. I ignored it. That afternoon, Tolu called me from school. "Daddy, I did well in my moot court presentation." I smiled. Her voice always brought me peace. "I knew you would," I said. "Your father has never lost a case in real life, you know?" She laughed. I remember that laugh. Like sunshine. I didn't tell her that something felt off. I didn't tell her that I was walking into a room that would break me. The 7th floor conference room had no windows. Just cold air conditioning and colder faces. 2 HR officials. 1 senior manager. 1 envelope on the table. I sat down. "Adiwale," the manager began, "due to ongoing restructuring within the organization, your position has been declared redundant." I didn't hear the rest. The words kept echoing. Redundant. 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 Like I was no longer useful. Like I was no longer needed. Like I was expired. They offered me a package, small. Nothing special. Just enough to assist with the transition. I walked out. Not crying. Not angry. Just numb. And as I stepped out into the hot Ibadan sun, I suddenly realized. I had built a life. And now, I had to go home and break it. I didn't call Ronk. I didn't tell Mama. I didn't send a message to Tulu. I just walked. From Dug to Makola. I walked past loud Danfo buses, market women shouting prices, children chasing kites. The city was still moving. But I was still. Inside me, everything had stopped. I had lost the job. But worse, I had lost my place. Who was I now? That evening, I opened the door. Ronk looked up from the kitchen. "Welcome, dear," she said. I nodded. The twins ran up and hugged my legs. Junior asked if I brought gala. I had forgotten. Mama called out from the room, asking me to help adjust her TV. Everything was normal. But nothing was normal. And I knew. Don't tell them yet. That was the first thing my mind whispered as I sat on the edge of the bed that night. Ronk was asleep. At least, she pretended to be. The children had gone quiet, finally knocked out by sleep after their usual play fight and noise. The ceiling fan creaked as it spun slowly above my head. Somewhere outside, a dog barked, and someone shouted at a generator that refused to start. I stared into the dark. The letter was still in my bag, sealed, printed on crisp white paper. One envelope, one paragraph, one decision, and my life had changed. But I couldn't say it. Not yet. Not when they were all so peaceful. Not when my home, the only thing I had left, still felt whole. So I told myself, tomorrow. I'll tell them tomorrow. But I didn't. The next morning, I woke up before everyone else. I boiled water for tea. I ironed my shirt, even though there was nowhere to go. I polished my shoes. I even put on my wristwatch. I looked like I had somewhere to be. Like I had a reason to leave the house. Ronk came out of the room and looked at me, confused. "You didn't eat last night," she said, tying her scarf. "I wasn't hungry," I replied. She watched me. "Are you okay?" I forced a smile. "Just a little tired. Maybe stress from the bank." She nodded slowly. "You should take your multivitamins." I nodded too. I left the house, and just walked again. I sat at Bodija Market for 3 hours. People moved around me. Selling, shouting, laughing. One woman selling okra tried to convince me to buy. I smiled and told her maybe next time. Next time. I had 2,000 Nigerian nairas in my wallet. That was all. I had never looked at money like it might need to last me for a month. I checked my phone, no missed calls, no job offers, no interviews. I typed jobs for experienced bankers in Ibadan into Google. Nothing useful. I opened my WhatsApp. Typed messages to 2 old colleagues. "Ogatunde, good morning sir. Just reaching out to connect. I may soon be in the market again. Chika, my guy, hope you day alright. Any opportunity at your side?" I didn't send them. I just saved them in drafts. That afternoon, I went to a small restaurant and bought a plate of rice for 500 Nigerian nairas. I ate slowly, like the food had answers. Then I walked home. Again. When I returned, Ronk was sitting in the living room, helping Junior with homework. "Ah, Daddy, you're back early," Junior said, eyes still on his book. "Work was light today," I replied. Ronk looked at me again, for a second too long. But she didn't say anything. Mama called me from her room. She said she needed help refilling her medicine box. I smiled and said, "Don't worry, I'll buy them tomorrow." Tomorrow. Again. Days passed. I kept dressing up like I had somewhere to go. I would leave in the morning and come back around evening. Sometimes I'd sit at parks. Sometimes in church compounds. Once, I even sat near a bus park, just to watch people move. I applied for jobs online. Wrote cover letters. Updated my CV again and again. No one called. Tolu called often from Lagos. I couldn't tell her. Not yet. She sounded happy. Focused. "I'll be writing my mid-semester test next week," she said one evening. "Pray for me, oh." "I always do," I said. "Your daddy is still proud of you." Still. That word again. At home, Ronk asked fewer questions. But I could feel her watching me. She had always been sensitive to the things I didn't say. She didn't argue. She didn't accuse. But she started talking more to herself than to me. She sighed more. She counted change carefully, in the open, so I'd see it. And one night, as I entered the bedroom, I saw her adjusting a small notebook under her pillow, her savings book. The one she never used unless things were tight. She didn't say anything. And neither did I. It was a Friday. The sky was gray. It looked like rain but didn't fall. There was heat, but no breeze. Junior had come home with a letter from school. PTA dues were overdue. The twins needed new sandals. Mama's medication had run out. Ronk was already looking thinner. I saw her sell one of her wrappers, quietly, at the back of the compound, to a neighbor. I knew I couldn't hide anymore. So I sat everyone down. Mama sat on her plastic chair, her wrapper tied high. The kids sat on the floor, confused. Ronk stood by the doorway. And I told them everything. I explained how the bank had let me go. How I thought I'd find another job quickly. How I had tried, really tried. How I couldn't find anything yet. How I was sorry. When I finished, the room went quiet. Junior looked at me, his eyes wide. So, you don't go to work? I shook my head. The twins just blinked. One of them whispered, "No more sweet." I smiled sadly. But Ronk didn't speak. She just turned and walked into the bedroom. She closed the door. And locked it. That night, I slept on the couch. Not because she told me to. But because I couldn't face her. I had always been her provider. Her safe place. Her backup plan. Now, I had become a burden she didn't ask for. That night, I cried quietly. I cried for the life we had. For the man I used to be. For the weight I had placed on my wife's shoulders. For the shame I saw in my children's silence. As I lay there, staring at the ceiling, something unexpected rose inside me. Not anger. Not self-pity. Just one burning question. Is this how it ends? That question burned like fire in my chest. Because deep down, I still believed something could rise from this. But how? I didn't know. Not yet. But that night, in the middle of shame and silence, a part of me whispered, "This isn't the end. It's just the shaking before the rebuild." I thought I had time, but time was running out. After I told my family the truth, the house changed. It wasn't loud. Nobody screamed. Nobody insulted me. But everything shifted. The silence became heavier. The smiles became fewer. Even the laughter of my children started sounding distant, like it belonged to a house next door. I had expected anger. What I didn't expect was disappointment. Disappointment doesn't shout. It just stays. Every day after that felt like I was living between two lives. The one I had, filled with purpose and provision. And the one I now had, filled with questions and quiet shame. I stopped dressing up in the morning. What was the point? I would sit on the veranda, watching cars pass. Sometimes, I'd count the number of delivery bikes zooming past and pretend I was doing something important. Ronk began waking earlier than usual. She left for school by 6 a.m., even though classes started by 7:30. She barely said goodbye anymore. Mama stopped asking for things. She would wait until Ronk came back before mentioning her medicine or food. And my children, they started whispering around me. Not because they were rude, but because they didn't want me to feel worse. It broke me. I started applying for jobs again, this time more desperately. I didn't just apply for banking roles anymore. I applied for everything. School bursar, customer service rep, admin officer at a poultry farm, night duty guard at a small hotel. I even tried a role that said, social media handler needed, flexible hours, must be creative. I didn't even fully understand what handler meant. I just clicked apply. I was ready to do anything. Anything that would let me provide again. But every day, my email looked the same. We regret to inform you. I stopped opening them. They all said the same thing, anyway. One afternoon, Mama came into the sitting room with her wrapper tied over her chest. She sat beside me and placed a small plastic container on my lap. I opened it, 3,000 Nigerian nairas. All in 500 Nigerian nairas notes. I frowned. Mama, what's this? She smiled. From my widow's pension. Just manage it. I looked at her. Mama, no. She gently closed my fingers around the container. You think you're the only one fighting for this family? She asked. I had no words. She stood, rubbed my back, and walked away. I sat there for 10 minutes, and cried again. That evening, Junior came into the room with his maths homework. He paused at the door, unsure. I smiled and waved him in. Come, my boy. He brought his book and sat beside me. Daddy, he whispered, can I ask you something? I nodded. If you don't work again, does it mean we'll leave this house? The question hit like a slap. I opened my mouth to respond, but nothing came. He looked up at me, eyes wide. Not scared, just waiting for truth. I don't know yet, I finally said. But no matter what happens, you'll always have me. He nodded slowly and continued writing. The landlord called 2 days later. I didn't pick. He sent a message. Mr. Adiwale, rent is overdue. Please reach out so we can discuss. I'm willing to be patient, but I need communication. Thank you. I stared at the message for an hour. Then I replied with 2 words. Please wait. That night, Runk didn't come to bed immediately. I could hear her in the kitchen, counting something, maybe coins, maybe what was left of her teacher's salary. I heard her sigh. Then I heard her pray. And for the first time, I realized something. She wasn't just praying for me anymore. She was praying in place of me. One of my old banking friends, Tunji, had promised to talk to someone for me. Said there might be an opening at a microfinance bank in town. I waited. And waited. I sent a polite follow-up. He blue-ticked me. Then I waited another 3 days. He finally replied. Bro, they've already filled it. I tried. Let me know if anything else comes up. That message stung. Not just because of the job, but because I realized how quickly people move on. The world doesn't stop just because you fell. That night, Runk and I were alone. The kids had slept. Mama was in her room. I was sitting on the sofa, pretending to read a newspaper I had read 3 times already. She sat across from me and said quietly, Adiwale, how long will we survive like this? I looked up. I'm trying, I said. I swear, I'm trying. I know, she replied. But trying is not feeding this house. Silence. Then she added, I'm not blaming you. But I need you to fight harder. Even if it means doing something you never imagined. Her voice didn't shake. But mine did. I don't know where to start. She looked at me and said something I'll never forget. Start from where you are. Even if it's from the ground. The next morning, I had 500 Nigerian nairas left in my wallet. I took a deep breath and walked out. I didn't have a plan. But I knew something had to break. Something had to give. And it couldn't be me. Not yet. As I walked around town, a thought hit me. I saw a small shop owner, a woman who sold rice, beans, and provisions. She was arguing with a supplier over her account book. It was full of errors. She didn't understand the balance sheet. She didn't know where her money was going. I stood there, watching. Then I heard that same whisper from deep inside me. You know how to fix that. I shook my head. Walked away. But the whisper returned. You don't need a big office. You don't need a title. Just help, one person. I stopped walking. And for the first time in a long while, I felt something inside me light up. At first, I thought I was losing money. Then I realized, I was losing everything else too. The moment I walked away from that shop owner with her messy account book, something clicked inside me. Just a spark. Not a fire. Not yet. But the idea didn't leave me. Could I start something? Could I really offer my skills to small traders, women and men who couldn't afford banks, who didn't understand numbers, who were tired of being cheated by suppliers or confused by receipts? It sounded foolish. Too small. Too beneath the man I used to be. But at that point, pride had become too expensive to carry. That evening, I returned home, my mind racing with thoughts. But as I walked in, the smell of burnt beans hit my nose. Runk stood by the pot, fanning smoke out the window. Her face was wet, not from tears, but from sweat and frustration. I forgot it on the fire, she muttered. No problem, I said gently. The twins were quiet, watching TV without sound. Probably because PHCN had taken light and the rechargeable lantern was dying. Junior was doing homework with a small torch held between his knees. And Mama? She was lying down with her wrapper over her face. The whole house looked tired. Worn out. Like a body that had walked through too many storms. Later that night, as the kids slept, I sat with Ronk in our bedroom. I saw something today, I began. She didn't respond. I saw a shop owner struggling with her books. She didn't know what she was earning, what she was losing. I think I can help people like that. She finally looked at me. How? I can offer small business advice. Help them keep records, manage cash, avoid loss. Just simple things. She blinked slowly. And they'll pay for that. I think so. You think or you know? Silence. Then she said, Adiwale, this is not the time to gamble. We need real money. School fees are around the corner. Mama's medicine is finished. The rent? I know, I interrupted. I'm not sitting here doing nothing. Her voice rose just a little. But nothing is changing either. I stood up, pacing. Do you think I don't know that? Do you think I don't feel the pressure every single minute? I'm not attacking you, she said, quietly now. I'm just tired. We both were. But we didn't know how to say it, together. It wasn't one big explosion that caused the distance. It was the little things. The way Ronk stopped packing my lunch, even when we had enough for one. The way I started eating out at a local booker, even when I could have come home. The way she spoke to the children more than she spoke to me. The way I began sleeping facing the wall. The way we started saying goodnight like strangers in a bus. The way Mama would call her into the room and whisper, I know things are hard, but don't let this house scatter. Even the children noticed. One night, Simi asked, Mummy, are you and Daddy angry? Ronk smiled and said, No, sweetie. We're just tired. But the truth was clear. Something inside our marriage was unraveling, like a thread that no one had time to tie back. The next week, the landlord came. He didn't knock loudly. He stood outside and called me gently. I stepped out, embarrassed. Mr. Adiwale, he began. I understand what you're going through. Times are hard. But it's been 2 months. I can't carry your burden forever. I understand, I said. Is there a plan? Yes. I'm working on something. He paused. You're a good man. I don't want to embarrass you. But next month, I may have no choice. I nodded. He left. I stood there, wishing the ground would open and swallow me. Ronk watched from the window, but she said nothing. 2 days later, I was sweeping the compound when I saw a cab pull up. It was Talu. She stepped out with 2 bags, 1 travel bag, and 1 plastic bag filled with food. My heart dropped. She wasn't supposed to be home. She was supposed to be in Lagos. At school. Studying. What are you doing here? I asked, trying to smile. She smiled back, but I saw it in her eyes, the truth. She dropped the bag of food on the floor. I had to come back. That night, as the family sat quietly to eat the food she brought, Talu sat beside me and whispered, I didn't want to tell you, but they won't allow me to continue without payment. I've been given warning letters. I felt my throat tighten. I should have told you earlier, she added. But I didn't want to make things worse. You didn't, I whispered. You've never made anything worse. Then she said something that made my heart tear open. Daddy, I still believe in you. The next day, Talu followed me to the market. She had her notepad. She pointed at a woman selling pepper and tomatoes. Talk to her, she said. About what? Tell her what you told us, how she can manage her books, how she can calculate her profit, how she can stop people from cheating her. I don't even know how to start. You start by helping one person, she said, repeating the voice I had heard in my own head weeks ago. I sighed and walked up to the woman. The woman's name was Aya Sailway. I told her I used to work in a bank. That I had experience with tracking expenses, profit margins, loss prevention, and saving plans. At first, she frowned. I no get money to pay anybody. I'm not asking for money, I said. Let me help you first. If you like it, you can pay later. Or not. She looked at me long and hard. Then she nodded. And just like that, I started. At home, nothing changed overnight. There was still tension. Still unpaid bills. Still nights of worry. But Ronk started asking how my market client was doing. Mama started praying louder. Talu began sharing tailoring sketches she had drawn. The children laughed more again. Not because things were fine, but because they saw me trying. Not just trying to find money, but trying to be a father again. The house was still cracked. But it wasn't falling apart anymore. At least, not yet. I still remember the exact moment Talu walked through the front door. It was a Wednesday afternoon, and I was sitting in the parlor, staring blankly at the muted television. There was no light, no sound, just the hum of the generator from a neighbor's house. My mind had drifted again into that dark space where all my thoughts gathered like angry clouds. I hadn't shaved in days. My shirt was stained. My eyes were sunken. I heard the front door creak open, followed by soft footsteps. At first, I thought it was my wife or one of the younger kids. But when I turned my head slowly, it was her. Talu. My first child. My pride. My light. She stood there with a backpack slung over one shoulder and a Ghana must-go bag in the other hand. She smiled faintly. "Daddy." That was all she said. But in that single word, I felt 1,000 things. Warmth, shame, relief, fear. I got up quickly, pretending to be stronger than I was. I tried to smile too, but it felt like my face had forgotten how. "Talu? What are you doing here? Are you on break? You didn't tell us you were coming." She looked down at her feet. "They said if I don't pay my balance before the end of the week, I can't write my exams." Silence. I could hear my own heartbeat. That was when I noticed. The backpack wasn't just for a short visit. And the Ghana must-go bag wasn't light. She had come back. Home. Dropped out. Because of me. I tried to hold myself together. I didn't want her to see me break down. I didn't want to show her that her father was now just a man filled with dust and regret. My lips trembled. My voice almost cracked. "We will sort it out. Maybe next semester. It's just for now." She nodded. But she knew. We both knew. My wife came out of the kitchen when she heard voices. When she saw Talu, her face lit up, then quickly dimmed again as she registered the luggage. They hugged for a long time. I stood to the side, feeling like a stranger in my own house. That evening, I sat in the backyard. The sun was setting, but the heat still lingered. The plastic chair beneath me squeaked with every movement. I could hear my children laughing faintly inside, probably excited their big sister was home. But I couldn't join in. My heart was heavy. I was the reason she had returned. I was the reason she couldn't finish her dream. I was the reason everything was falling apart. Later that night, Talu came to sit beside me. "Daddy, it's okay," she said, her voice soft. "It's not your fault." I looked at her, blinking back tears. "You should be in school, Talu. Reading books. Becoming a lawyer. Not sitting here with your father who can't even buy you airtime." She smiled gently. "Do you know what kept me going in school? It wasn't just my dream. It was you. You and Mummy. I wanted to make you proud. And I still will. I haven't stopped dreaming. I just pressed pause." That night, she slept in the same room with her siblings. I could hear them whispering and giggling deep into the night. For the first time in weeks, the house felt a little more alive. But inside me, something was still dying. The next few days, Talu helped around the house. She cooked, cleaned, helped her younger ones with their homework. She even started cutting old clothes and stitching them back together. I didn't ask questions. I thought maybe she was trying to pass time. Then one afternoon, about a week after she returned, I came home from a failed attempt at another job interview. I had walked under the sun for hours, only to be told the role had been filled last week. My shirt was soaked with sweat. My feet were blistered. I felt defeated. But as I opened the gate, I saw a bag of rice on the doorstep. 2 cartons of noodles. A small sack of Gary. I blinked. Was I dreaming? Then I heard her voice from the kitchen window. "Daddy, is that you? I bought some things. The market had a discount." I walked in, confused. "You bought? With what money?" She hesitated. "I've been sewing. Some of Mummy's co-teachers gave me fabric to make simple skirts and blouses. They paid small. But I saved it. And I sold some of my clothes too." She looked away, as if ashamed. But I couldn't speak. My daughter, the one I thought I failed, was now carrying this family. I walked out again. I didn't want her to see the tears pouring down my face. I sat on the same plastic chair in the backyard, clutching my chest. That was the day something shifted in me. I had been drowning. But she refused to let me sink. A child I thought I had disappointed had become my anchor. Later that night, I knocked on her door. She opened it with a smile. "Talu, can we talk?" She nodded. I sat with her and said, "Thank you. For not giving up on me. For stepping in. But also, I want to do something. Anything. I need to try again." She held my hand and said the words that changed everything. "Then let's start small, Daddy. Anything is better than nothing." And with that, a seed of hope was planted. In the ashes of my shame, something new began to grow. Because my daughter, my hero, had come home. Rain poured the next morning, tapping gently on the rusted zinc roof like a quiet knock from God. It was the kind of rain that made you think, not the kind that ruins plans, but the kind that forces you to pause. I sat up on my mattress, stiff from a restless night, and stared at the ceiling as water dripped slowly from a hole near the corner. I couldn't shake off Tolu's words from last night. Then let's start small, Daddy. Anything is better than nothing. Start small. But where? I had gone from office manager to cleaner to nothing. My network was dry. My reputation, once gold in our neighborhood, had turned to dust. People crossed the street now instead of greeting me. Even some church members who used to call me Brother Adiwale now avoided eye contact. But Tolu, she saw more in me than I saw in myself. That morning, I sat with her again, this time with a paper and pen. She brought Gary and groundnut in a plastic bowl and sat beside me. Okay, Daddy, she said, opening a notebook. Let's think. What are you good at? What can you do with your hands? I laughed weakly. I can write reports, prepare budgets, organize documents. I can give big ideas. She raised her eyebrows. But do you have any skills people need now? Not office talk, survival talk. I paused. That was the question, wasn't it? I can drive. I used to help Uncle Bayo with his deliveries years ago. Her eyes lit up. Then let's start there. We can look for people who need delivery help. I'll go online and check. We can print small flyers. Anything. I looked at her and smiled. You really won't give up on me, will you? She grinned. Never. By the following week, with the help of one of Tolu's friends who worked at a business center, we printed 50 flyers. Just simple black and white designs that read, reliable delivery services fast. Polite. Affordable, call Adiwale, 0803XXXXXXX. We handed them out at markets, schools, churches, and even stuck a few on walls near car parks. No calls came for the first 2 days. Then one afternoon, a woman named Mrs. Funmileo called. She ran a small catering business and needed someone to deliver jollof rice trays across the city. Her usual guy had traveled. Could I help? I didn't own a car, but I knew how to hustle. I borrowed a friend's Keek tricycle and did the delivery. I wore my cleanest shirt, even ironed it twice, and showed up with a smile. I didn't tell her it was my first gig in months. I didn't tell her I was once a manager in a tall building with air conditioning and leather chairs. I simply said, "Good afternoon, Ma. I'm here for the rice." She looked surprised. You? You sound educated. I smiled. Even educated people need food. She laughed. And just like that, something cracked open. The job went smoothly. I made 2,500 Nigerian nairas that day. When I got home, I gave 1,000 Nigerian nairas to my wife for food, kept 500 Nigerian nairas for fuel, and handed the rest to Tolu. "Daddy, you don't have to give me. It's your hustle." "No," I said, firmly. "You planted this seed. We'll grow it together." She didn't argue. But I saw the tears in her eyes. The next week brought 3 more delivery jobs. Then 5. Mrs. Funmileo told her friends. One of them owned a bakery. Another, a boutique. Soon, I was delivering more than food, shoes, bags, fabrics. Anything. One afternoon, I even delivered a birthday cake. As I handed it over, the woman said, "Please wait, let me dash you one small cake. You look like a man who has seen hard times." I took the cake with gratitude. When I got home, my kids squealed with excitement. "Cake?" On a Tuesday, my youngest shouted. We sat on the floor and shared it in small pieces. It felt like Christmas. That night, I lay on the floor mat beside my wife. "I think I'm coming back to life," I whispered. She turned to me, her eyes soft. "You were never dead, Adiwale. You were just buried under too much pain." Then came the call that changed everything. An old friend from my banking days, Chucks, had seen one of my flyers. Apparently, his wife had received a cake through me and mentioned how polite and organized I was. He didn't know I was the one until he saw the name. "Adiwale? Is this you? Bro, what happened?" I told him the short version. "Come to the office tomorrow. We need someone like you for logistics coordination. It's not management level, but it's stable. Steady pay. We'll talk more when you come." I froze. 4 minutes. Tolu came into the room, holding fabric she had just stitched. "Daddy? What's wrong?" I turned to her slowly. "I think the rain is finally stopping." She smiled. And in that moment, I saw the future. Not perfect, but possible. The next morning, I put on my old brown suit. The same one I wore the day I got my first banking job 18 years ago. It was tighter now. A bit faded. But it still held power. Before leaving, I stood in the parlor and looked at my family, Tolu, my wife, the kids. Whatever happens today, I want you all to know. I'm trying. Because of you. Tolu walked over and adjusted my collar. Go and shine, Daddy. We're already proud. As I stepped out, the morning sun broke through the clouds. It wasn't raining anymore. And neither was I. It started with a sewing machine. An old, rusted Singer machine that had belonged to my wife's late mother. It had been sitting in our storage room for years, covered in dust and cobwebs, forgotten like so many other broken dreams in this house. But now, it sat proudly in the corner of our parlor, cleaned and oiled, its metal frame gleaming faintly under the glow of our rechargeable lamp. That night, Tolu and I sat at the dining table, scribbling ideas in an old notebook. She had made a list of everything we could possibly sew: simple clothes, school uniforms, pillowcases, aprons, even tote bags. My eyes scanned the list again and again. Every item felt like a new possibility, like a door waiting to be opened. But Daddy, she said, tapping her pen on the page, we'll need fabric. And thread. And zippers. And customers. I nodded slowly. Let me handle it. The next morning, I went to a nearby tailor I knew, Mama Rashidat. She had a small shop close to the main road. I hadn't spoken to her in months, not since I stopped delivering fabrics to her back when I had my little transport hustle. But as I walked into her shop, the smell of starch and hot iron brought back memories. She looked up, surprised. Adiwale? I smiled faintly. Good afternoon, Ma. She squinted, then smiled back. Hey, it's been long how you day? We talked. I told her about my daughter and how she was sewing at home. I told her we were trying to start small, and asked if she had leftover fabric she wasn't using. She didn't even hesitate. I have plenty, she said. Come with sack. By the end of that day, I returned home with a half-full sack of cloth pieces. Some were too small for anything meaningful, but others were perfect for starting out. Tolu's eyes lit up when she saw them. We began that same night. She sketched patterns on brown paper, showed me how to cut fabric properly, and how to stitch straight lines. I fumbled at first, cutting too much here, sewing too fast there, but she was patient. She laughed when I got it wrong, but not in a mocking way. It was the kind of laughter that lifted shame instead of adding to it. Soon, we created our first piece, a simple tote bag. It wasn't perfect, but it was real. We had made something. With our hands. From scratch. Now we just need to sell it, Tolu said. That was the next mountain. We didn't have money for a shop, or even a table in front of our house. So we decided to go digital. Tolu borrowed her friend's phone to take pictures. She placed the tote bag on the cleanest part of our wall, arranged a few books and pencils to style it, and snapped a few shots. Then she posted them on WhatsApp and Facebook with a caption. Handmade tote bag by father and daughter. Support our hustle. #family business. The next day, we got 2 orders. One was from a friend of my wife's colleague. The other was from Tolu's course mate, who simply wrote, I'm proud of you. It felt like a miracle. Suddenly, our house became a mini factory. The dining table became the cutting station. The parlor became the showroom. Even my younger kids got involved. One helped with measuring. Another ran small errands. My wife, who had returned from school each day looking tired, began ironing our finished products to give them a neat touch. We made 5 bags in the first week. We sold 3. By the second week, someone requested a custom apron. Then came a bulk order of 6 school uniforms from a woman who ran a nursery school. Business was slow, but steady. Each night, we counted the little money we had made. Each naira felt heavier, more meaningful than any salary I had ever received. This wasn't just business, it was healing. And then, one afternoon, something strange happened. A man came to our gate. He was wearing a neat shirt and had a small notebook in hand. He asked for me. I saw your daughter's post online, he said. I run a small cooperative for home businesses. We help people grow small ideas into something bigger. I stared at him, unsure if I should trust this stranger. He smiled. I'm not here to scam you, sir. We help with small loans, training, even getting proper business registration. No interest, just accountability. My mind was spinning. Was this another trap? Another empty promise? I told him I'd think about it. That night, I brought it up at dinner. The kids had already eaten and gone to bed. Tolu, my wife, and I sat at the table with a single lantern between us. What if it's real? Tolu asked. What if it's not? I replied. My wife spoke for the first time. Adiwale, we've already come too far to live in fear. If this man wants to help, let's listen. The next day, I called the number he left. We met at a local church hall where he introduced me to other small business owners, people like me, who were struggling but trying. Some sold soap. Some baked bread. Some were into shoemaking. I saw myself in them. And I realized, I wasn't alone anymore. For the first time in a long while, I felt like I was part of something. A movement. A new beginning. When I returned home, I told Tolu everything. She hugged me tight. Daddy, this is just the beginning. And she was right. We were still poor. Still behind on rent. Still unsure of tomorrow. But something had shifted. This wasn't survival anymore. This was a hustle. And the hustle had begun. They say the darkest hour is just before dawn. But what they never tell you is how long that hour can feel when you're stuck in it. For me, it felt like years. I woke up one morning to the sound of birds singing just outside my window. Their songs felt unfamiliar, almost out of place, like they belonged to a world that was moving on without me. I sat up slowly, my body aching from the hard wooden bed, my mind already racing with worry. Another day. Another battle. Another prayer. But this morning was different. It was the day I decided to say yes. Tolu had found a woman in the area, Auntie Remy, who owned a small sewing shop not too far from our street. She sold school uniforms and did basic tailoring. Tolu had been helping her on weekends, and it was Auntie Remy who had first asked, "Why doesn't your daddy come learn too? I could use the extra hands." At first, I had laughed. Me? A man in his 50s, learning how to use a sewing machine? But that laughter was bitter. Empty. Tolu had only smiled and said, "You always told us real men don't choose pride over family." So that morning, I wore my cleanest shirt and walked with her to the shop. It wasn't anything fancy. A small kiosk with wooden walls and a zinc roof. The floor was bare cement, cracked in places. But it was full of life, spools of colorful thread, stacks of folded fabrics, the scent of starch and ironed clothes. Auntie Remy welcomed me with a wide smile. "Ah, Mr. Adiwale. You finally agreed. Oh. Welcome. You're never too old to learn." I nodded politely, trying not to look awkward. That first day, I just sat and watched. I studied how the machine worked, how she measured cloth, how she talked to customers with such warmth that they kept coming back. Tolu stood beside me the entire time, her hand resting lightly on my shoulder every now and then, like a silent message, "You can do this." The following days were slow. My hands fumbled with the scissors. I pricked my fingers with needles. My seams were crooked. But every time I wanted to quit, Tolu would gently correct me. "No, Daddy, you're getting better. Look, this one is straighter than yesterday." And she was right. Auntie Remy began to give me small tasks, hemming a skirt, threading bobbins, even ironing. Customers would smile when they saw me, often surprised but never mocking. "We need more men like you," one woman said. "Men who fight for their homes." The word stayed with me. Within weeks, I could sew basic things, pillowcases, simple school uniforms, even a few native tops. I wasn't a master tailor, not yet. But I was becoming something I hadn't been in a long time. Useful. Meanwhile, at home, the atmosphere was changing. There was more laughter. More warmth. My wife began to cook with joy again. The younger kids played and joked freely. Tolu was always humming while she worked, and her eyes, once tired and worried, now held something else. Hope. One evening, we all sat outside in front of the house, enjoying the breeze. Tolu brought out a tray of roasted corn and pear. The scent made me smile. "Daddy," she said, handing me a piece. "I was thinking, we could open our own small sewing shop one day. You and me. What do you think?" I chewed slowly, pretending not to be caught off guard. I said. "I think that sounds like a plan." And for the first time, I meant it. But life wasn't done testing me. Just a week after that beautiful evening, Auntie Remy called us together. Her eyes were red. "I have to travel," she said. "My mother in Ibadan is sick. Very sick. I don't know when I'll be back. Maybe months. Maybe longer." My heart sank. She handed me a small key. "I want you to keep the shop running while I'm gone. Tolu will help you. I trust you both." I couldn't speak. I just stared at the key in my hand, shaking slightly. "But I'm not ready," I whispered. She smiled sadly. "You'll never feel ready. Just do your best. That's all anyone can ask." When she left, It felt like we were standing on a cliff with no safety net. The responsibility was heavy. But Talu was already sweeping the shop, organizing fabrics, writing down ideas in her small notepad. "We can do this," she said simply. And so we did. The first few days were slow. Some customers came in and left when they didn't see Auntie Remy. But gradually, they returned. Talu's customer service was a blessing. My stitching got better. Word started spreading. "Go to that shop beside Maman Ketch's stall. The man there is good. And his daughter is very respectful." Before we knew it, we had orders for school uniforms, choir robes, and even wedding asoebi outfits. One afternoon, as I was sewing the final hem of a client's outfit, I paused and looked around. The sewing machine hummed beneath my fingers. Talu was laughing with a customer. The shop smelled like progress. And in that moment, I realized, this wasn't just survival anymore. This was rebuilding. This was the turning point. We didn't have much money. But we had dignity again. Purpose. A dream. Later that night, I sat alone in the backyard under the stars. My hands were rough with calluses, but my heart was soft. I thought of how far we had come. From a man who had lost everything, to a man who had found himself again in a needle and thread. All because my daughter had come home, and refused to let me fall. It started with a knock. Not the loud, impatient kind that landlords or debt collectors made. This one was gentle. Almost uncertain. I was in the backyard again, bent over a basin, trying to scrub the last pair of my torn trousers. I had insisted on doing it myself that morning. My wife needed rest. Talu was sewing inside. The twins were doing homework. And for the first time in a long time, I felt the will to move. The knock came again. "Daddy, someone is at the gate." Talu called. I dried my hands on a rag and walked slowly to the front of the house. As I opened the gate, a tall man stood there. Dark-skinned, early 40s, his shirt tucked neatly into iron trousers. He had a clipboard in one hand and a faded ID card hanging from his neck. "Good afternoon, sir," he said politely. "Good afternoon. Can I help you?" He smiled. "My name is Mr. Kaode. I'm from the Community Empowerment Office. We're running a local skills initiative program. One of your neighbors submitted your name. Said you used to be an electrical technician." I froze. My first instinct was to deny it. I wanted to retreat, to hide behind the shame I had built walls around. But the man stood there, patient, expectant. His eyes kind. Not judging. "Yes," I said finally. "Yes, I used to." "Fantastic. We're offering free refresher courses. The government wants to help people back into work. It's a 2-week program. Just in the next community hall. Transportation and food will be covered. Are you interested?" I blinked. Was this a dream? Yes. Yes, I'm interested. Very interested. He handed me a paper. "Come with this tomorrow morning. Just bring yourself. We'll do the rest." When he left, I stood by the gate, staring at the flyer like it was a ticket to another world. That evening, the family gathered around the small table to eat. The food was simple, rice and stew with tiny pieces of dried fish. But it tasted like a feast. I told them about the visit. My wife smiled so wide I thought her cheeks would burst. Talu clapped softly. "That's good, Daddy. That's very good." I nodded slowly. "I'm going," I said. "I'm going to try. I may be older, rusty, but I still remember how to fix things." My wife reached for my hand. "We believe in you. We always have." The next morning, I wore my only decent shirt. Talu had pressed it for me. My wife packed a small bottle of water in a nylon bag. The twins hugged me as I left. The walk to the community hall was short but filled with nervous thoughts. What if I was too old? What if I forgot everything? What if I embarrassed myself? But when I stepped into the hall, everything changed. There were over 20 other men and women, some older, some younger, some with missing teeth, others with hopeful eyes. A man in a blue jacket welcomed us. He was the instructor, Mr. Adebayo. He had once worked with a big electrical firm before starting his own. He greeted everyone warmly. "This is not just a class," he said. "This is a new beginning. You're not here because you failed. You're here because you survived. And now you rise again." Something inside me stirred. His words went deeper than encouragement. They reached into the cracks I had tried to hide and filled them with light. We started with the basics: safety, wiring, reading diagrams. My hands shook the first time I picked up the pliers. But then memory returned. Muscle memory. I remembered how wires bent, how screws tightened, how circuits came alive. By the end of the first day, I had rewired a mock switchboard. When I flipped the switch and the bulb lit up, the class clapped. I hadn't smiled like that in years. Every day after that, I went back. I arrived early, took notes, asked questions. Mr. Adebayo noticed my dedication. "You've done this before," he said one afternoon. "Yes, sir. Years ago. Before life happened." He nodded. "Life happens. But so can rebirth. You're good. Really good. Don't stop." Meanwhile, back home, Tolu continued sewing. Orders started coming in. Simple dresses. School uniforms. Even some church women asked for matching wrappers. My wife helped her measure fabrics. Sometimes, the whole sitting room turned into a tailor's workshop. I would come home covered in sweat and grease, and they'd greet me with joy. My twins would run to show me their new drawings. For the first time in months, laughter became normal again. After 2 weeks, we completed the training. Certificates were handed out. Mr. Adebayo pulled me aside. "I have a friend who runs a small repairs company. He's looking for someone to handle minor electrical issues, house calls, wiring, fixing small appliances. You interested?" I swallowed hard. "Yes. Absolutely." He smiled. "Good. Come tomorrow. I'll introduce you." I left the hall that day with my certificate in one hand and hope in the other. The job wasn't much at first. One call here, a socket there. But it was something. A start. And every time I came home with even a small payment, I gave some to my wife and kept the rest for transport and savings. The change was slow, but real. We could afford small meat in our stew again. Recharge cards without guilt. The children's school fees, though still hard, didn't feel impossible. And one night, as we all sat under the dim yellow bulb in the parlor, eating boiled corn and groundnut, I looked around and realized. We had made it through the storm. Not rich. Not perfect. But alive. Together. And rising. My wife leaned on my shoulder. Tolu sat cross-legged, sketching new styles. The twins giggled over a riddle. I closed my eyes for a second and breathed in the moment. For the first time in a long while, I felt like a man again. Not because I earned more. Not because the world saw me. But because I never gave up. Because we, my family and I, chose to fight, to love, to believe again. And that belief had given us a new breath of life. Months had passed since I first stood in that backyard, gripping my chest in shame and helplessness. Months since Tolu came home and planted a new seed of hope in me. And now, as I stood on the front porch watching the sun rise over the rooftops of our neighborhood, I realized how far we had come. Not far in riches, no. We were still managing, counting change, stretching meals, walking more than riding. But something had shifted in our hearts. The house was filled again, not with silence and sorrow, but with effort and laughter. Not every day was joyful, but every day felt alive. I had started working with Baba Sheena, the old electrician down the road. It wasn't glamorous, but it was honest work. I carried tools, helped with wiring, installed ceiling fans, and cleaned up after jobs. Baba Sheena paid what he could, and most times, clients gave tips if the job was well done. For the first time in a long while, I brought money home, not much, but mine. And deserved. My wife's face had changed. Her eyes, once sunken with worry, now held a steady spark. She still worked overtime at the school, but now, we talked in the evenings again. About life. About the children. About dreams we thought we had buried. And Tolu. Tolu became a name on people's lips. That girl who sews. The one who altered my lace gown perfectly. That quiet, respectful tailor that works from home. She had borrowed an old sewing machine from one of Mummy's co-teachers and turned the corridor into her workspace. Day after day, her hands moved swiftly, transforming fabric into beauty. And clients came, neighbors, teachers, market women. Some came just to say, "God bless you." Then one day, she came to me holding a brown envelope. "I applied for a vocational grant," she said, smiling, "and they approved it." Inside was a check. A real check. Enough to buy her own machine. Enough to rent a tiny shop. Enough to take one more bold step forward. I stared at her, my heart swelling with pride. "You did this," I said. She shook her head. "We did." The other children had grown too. Junior had stopped sulking. I caught him reading more, helping Tolu run errands, and even volunteering to sweep. The little ones were laughing again. Their drawings changed from sad stick figures to colorful houses and smiling suns. Our home, still cracked, still humble, had become a place of life again. Then one afternoon, I received a call. It was from a church member I hadn't seen in years. He ran a small Christian radio station and said someone had told him about me, how I used to give motivational talks and counsel young men. He invited me to speak at a youth conference. At first, I laughed. Me? What would I say? What did I have left to give? But Tolu overheard the call. And that night, she came to my room. "Daddy, say yes," she said. "But what do I have to tell them?" She looked me dead in the eye. "Your story. That's what you'll tell them." And so, I said yes. The hall wasn't big, maybe 40 chairs set in rows. Young boys and girls filled the space. Some looked distracted, others curious. I took the microphone with shaking hands. My voice cracked on the first sentence. "My name is Adiwale. Once, I had everything. Then, I lost it all." They listened. I told them about the job, the company car, the comfort. Then the fall. The silence. The shame. The depression. The loss of my daughter's education. I told them about sitting alone in the backyard, convinced my life was over. And then, I told them about Tolu. How she came home with nothing but faith. How she fed us when I couldn't. How she refused to let me drown. When I finished, the room was silent. Then someone clapped. Then more. Then all of them. After the event, a young boy walked up to me and said, "Sir, I was planning to give up. But now, maybe I'll press pause too. Just like your daughter." I smiled. That's when I knew, I still had something to offer this world. From that day, I started speaking more. Sometimes at small gatherings, sometimes just one-on-one with neighbors. People began to ask me for advice again, not because I was rich, but because I had been there. I had felt the fire and survived it. Tolu reopened her school registration the following year. She didn't go back full-time, but she took weekend law classes and online courses. Every time she left with her books, I stood at the door and watched her go, feeling like I was seeing her walk into the future we once feared lost. And one bright Sunday morning, as I sat at the breakfast table eating yam and egg with my family, I looked around and realized, this was it. Not the life I dreamed, but the life we rebuilt. Together. The darkness had been real. Deep. Terrifying. But the light, was ours. And forged in pain. Shaped by resilience. Fueled by love. I turned to my wife and held her hand. She looked at me and nodded. We made it. Maybe not to riches, but to peace. And in a world like this, peace is wealth too. As Tolu laughed with her siblings, and the generator hummed faintly in the background, I whispered to myself, this is not the end. It's the beginning.
Thanks for watching this video. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel for more amazing stories. Click the video on your screen to keep watching. Another great video story is waiting for you.